Hello, welcome to Jason the Old Millennial. My name is Jason, speaking to you here in my basement in the great state of Kansas. Today's video, I'm starting a new series where I'm ranking every Best Picture winner so far, which are 95 at the moment. And I've seen all 95 Best Picture winners at one point in my life. This is because of my sister actually, older sister Abby, won a contest earlier this year. I did a contest predicting who's going to win at the Oscars this last Oscar season, and my sister won that contest. And her prize was she got to pick my one of my next projects I'm gonna work on. And so I gave her some ideas of what I wanted to do, and she picked this one, ranking all the Oscar-winning movie Best Picture winners. So that's what we're doing here on Jason the Old Millennial. Hello, hope everybody's doing well here in a kind of late afternoon, early evening. I'm not sure what to call this period of the day. I do these videos sometimes, but yeah, it's Monday, and yeah, I'm going through all the Oscar-winning Best Picture winners, which I've seen all 95. Some I remember better than others, I have to admit. So sometimes I'll put something on there and I'll be like, I just don't remember it that well, but I did see them all. I promise I did see them at one point. Anyway, so yeah, so let's get through them. I'm going to try to get through 10 at a time so we get 95 movies to talk about. Try to get through these as best I can. Anyway, so start with number 95. Number 95, my least favorite Best Picture winner so far that's come out. As we know, the year 2020 was the worst year of most of our lives, one of the worst years in human history. So it's fitting that it also produced the worst Best Picture winner, I think, in my opinion, and that is Nomadland, that won Best Picture that year in 2020. People use the analogy, it would be more interesting to watch paint dry than whatever, to exaggerate like how boring something is. And I would say literally this is as exciting as watching paint dry. And I would not exaggerating. I would get just as much enjoyment staring at a wall and watching paint dry than watching this movie. It's the most boring movie I've ever seen in my life. And that's counting some really boring movies in my life. And this is a movie where nothing happens. There's so many scenes where just nothing's happening. She's walking somewhere, and Frances McDormand plays the main character in this. And there's only maybe 2 actual actors in this whole movie. A lot of people are just actual nomads, whatever, these people that travel from town to town to get jobs. And so a lot of people aren't actually even actors, and so you can tell, but yeah, it's just so boring. It's a very pointless movie. It has no point to it. Don't get what the purpose of this movie is at all. And to add insult to injury, I guess, it has one of the worst scenes I've ever seen in my life, and I'll just describe it. There's a scene where Frances McDormand, who's probably like in her 60s or something, or at least 50s, mid late 50s or something like that, she lives in like her car thing, what do you call it, and that she drags around, and she has to go to the bathroom, and she runs in and pulls down her pants and poops in a bucket. I kid you not, we see her pull her pants down and poop in a bucket. It is an atrocious scene to have to watch. And I say shame on this movie, shame on the director, shame on Frances McDormand for making me watch that. They didn't make me watch it, but for putting that in the film, and me seeing that is a terrible image I never want to see in my life. And so I say, for that, I really hate this movie. It's at number 95, Nomadland. Number 94 on my list is going to be very controversial because this is a movie people really love, and it's probably most serious moviegoers or reviewers. This is in their top 10. Some, it might be even their favorite movie of all time. I absolutely hate this movie, and that is Midnight Cowboy, which won Best Picture in 1969. It is known as the only X-rated movie to win Best Picture, even though they've taken down the X rating since. But at the time, it was rated X. I mean, that should tell you something about this movie. It is a gross, disgusting movie with really gross, disgusting characters that are very unlikable. And I hate the whole premise of it. I do not like the characters at all. It is not an interesting movie. I don't get why people like this movie so much. To me, it's just a sleazy movie that I feel like I have to take a shower after I watched it. One time I watched it, I was like, I need to take a shower. I'm just so disgusted by this movie, and the characters and the choices they make and all that. I mean, you can say maybe Dustin Hoffman gives a fairly good performance here, and I will say the title song is really good by Harry Nilsson, or he at least sang it. Everybody's Talking at Me. Really good song and all that. And terrible ending, just a really terrible, sad, depressing ending to a terrible movie. And that's Midnight Cowboy for me at number 94. Number 93, of course, you're going to see a lot of older movies on the bottom part of this list, because it is true, some of the really old movies on this list are kind of boring and just, nothing exciting about them. And it's just because it feels like movies they're still working out the kinks of how to make a good movie in some of these cases. And so at number 93, I have actually the very first movie to win Best Picture, which is a movie called Wings from the movie I think came out maybe 1927 or something like that, but it won Best Picture for 1929. The very first Oscar ceremony came out in 1929, and it had movies from 1927, 1928. So it's a little different than most. But anyways, Wings is one of two, the first first silent movie to win Best Picture. Only two have won Best Picture, and we'll get the second one at a later time. But this was a silent movie because it was 1929, and a lot of movies were silent movies. Talking movies just started in 1927, and so it was still a fairly new idea, a movie where you can hear the people talk and all that. So silent films were still around and doing, kind of a big deal at the time. Wings and the problem, like I said, for me is that it's a silent movie, and I'm not a big on silent movies. I get more enjoyment when I can hear people talk and I hear sounds, hear musical scores. Definitely makes the movie better, elevate the movie. That's why we got talkies. It elevates the movie. So it does hurt the fact that it's a silent film, and it's a 3-hour film. It's a really long film about pilots during World War I. Who have a love triangle and then they become friends and all this. And it's just hard to watch a movie where they're talking, you can't hear what they're saying, and then a title card comes on and says, oh, this is what they said. It just slows the movie down so much, and it's just hard to get through those. And yeah, so Wings, it's too long. It's just a boring movie to me. So I had to put it here at 93. 92 is a movie that you've probably never heard of. I say it one time, I don't remember much about it, and it's called Calvacade, which won Best Picture in 1933, so a very early Best Picture winner. Like I said, it's one of the hardest movies to find, because I remember when I was looking for this movie, I saw this movie maybe 15 years ago, maybe 10 to 15 years ago. I finally caught this movie. I think I caught it on YouTube. I think someone posted it on YouTube. So it wasn't a great copy of it or whatever, but this is a movie that they've never put on DVD. Last time I remember, I was looking up this movie. They never put it on DVD. You never come across this. It's not on any streaming services. And I looked it up on Amazon, and someone had a VHS tape of this movie that they're selling for $500 or something like that. So it's I'm gonna spend $500 on a VHS tape, and I don't have a VCR. That's how rare this movie is. So it's just a really hard movie to find, really rare. Nobody knows this movie. I doubt anybody watching this would know this movie or seen it. And yeah, so I watched it one time. I somehow caught it on a YouTube channel, I think, or something like that. Somehow somebody posted it. And again, not great quality, but this is a very forgettable movie, pretty boring. And it just follows this family as they go through different events in history. The only thing I remember is that they're on the Titanic at one time in the movie, and they deal with the Titanic and they survive. So it kind of follows this family, but yeah, it's just a very unmemorable movie. That's why it's at number 92, Calvacade. Number 91, another very early, in fact, I had Wings, the first movie. This is, I believe, the second movie to win Best Picture, second or third. I'm pretty sure it's second movie, if I remember right. I say that because two movies won Best Picture this year. I think this was the first one, and this was called the Broadway Melody, and this was 1930. So it was the second year that we had the Oscars, but there's two ceremonies in one year. The only time we had two ceremonies in one Oscar year anyways. But Broadway Melody, it's just a very simple, as you can tell, it's about two girls, I forget if they're sisters or friends, trying to make it on Broadway, and I think they fall in love with a piano player or something like that. And there's some musical numbers, but they're not very good because it's 1930s musicals. So the musical numbers weren't really that good. The sound quality, the picture quality wasn't that good. It's one that the acting wasn't that good. It's just a ho-hum movie. It's like, how did this win Best Picture? There's nothing to it to me, except for maybe the musical numbers were considered really good at the time. But it's a nothing movie, so it's at number 91 on my list. Number 90 is a movie called The Lost Weekend. Another movie that's not really well known. It won Best Picture in 1945, so another fairly old picture. It was directed by Billy Wilder, and it's one of his lesser known movies, and it won Best Picture. I mean, you talk about, Sunset Boulevard is like his most famous film, and it didn't win Best Picture. But yeah, other ones like Stalag 17 is a good movie that didn't win. The Apartment did win. That's a good movie that I'll talk about. It's a real good movie that up on my thing. But this is like one of two movies that won Best Picture for Billy Wilder, who's one of the great directors of the 30s, 40s, 50s period, whatever. And yeah, it's a very forgettable movie again. And I believe it's the main actor is Ray Milland, and he plays a writer who's an alcoholic, and he shuts himself into a hotel room to write and try to get away from alcohol, I think, but he still is struggling with alcohol anyways. And so it seemed, I think, a very serious movie because it was like the first big movie to deal with alcoholism and the problems with it. And just watch it now, it's just like, boring, and it's just like, man, it's just kind of depressing, and like, I don't really care about following this guy struggling with alcoholism. Just not really interesting movie to watch. Anyways, so yeah, it's just didn't care for it. Not much to say on that one, The Lost Weekend, though. Number 89 on my list is the movie that's considered maybe the biggest mistake in Best Picture history, and that is a movie called How Green Was My Valley, which won Best Picture in 1941. It's a John Ford film. Actually, the second John Ford won Best Director for this movie, and it was his third Best Director win at this point, and second in a row. He won in 1940 for Grapes of Wrath as well. Grapes of Wrath didn't win Best Picture, but he won Best Director for that film, and then he followed up with this, How Green Was My Valley. Of course, John Ford, very obviously, he's third Best Director. He's one of the biggest director in Hollywood at this moment. I mean, anything he puts out does very well at this time, anyways. And I say it's one that's considered the biggest mistake is because 1941 was the year Citizen Kane came out, and Citizen Kane is considered by many to be the greatest movie of all time. A lot of lists, it's usually number one or whatever. It was groundbreaking in its writing and directing and whatever. Orson Welles, was a genius. Everybody considered at the time. And I'm not like the biggest Citizen Kane fan, but it definitely was better than this movie. This movie follows this town, this like factory town in I think Ireland, and I forget exactly. It's like around World War I or World War II era or something like that. But I don't know if that makes it big, but it's based on the eyes of the kid played by Roddy McDowall, who goes on to do a lot of movies later on, but he was just a kid in this movie, and we follow his life kind of, and it's just not that interesting. There's really not that big a plot that follows. It's just seeing what he goes through in life, and like there's an abusive teacher at one point that like is physically abusive to him, and so it's just a very miserable movie, I felt like, and just again kind of boring. Nothing really that interesting happens in it. And yeah, it's just a real disappointment of a movie to win Best Picture, anyways, in my opinion. So that's why I got pretty far down here at 89, How Green Was My Valley. Number 88, considered one of the great kind of romance movies I didn't care for, and that is called From Here to Eternity, which won Best Picture in 1953, year my dad was born, in fact, so it's 70 years old now. 2023, at least it's 70 years ago, won Best Picture. Again, this has a great cast though. Burt Lancaster, Cliff Robinson, I would say, Deborah Carr, what's her name? The lady from It's a Wonderful Life is in it. She won an Oscar for Best Supporting Actress. Frank Sinatra won an Oscar for Best Supporting Actor for this movie. So I think Fred Zimmerman was the director. I'm doing this all off the top of my head. I don't have the notes with me, so hopefully I'm getting that right. But also Ernest Borgnine is in here before he really became big, and he had a kind of small part here. Anyways, but it's incredible cast. overall, and Oscar winning, whatever. And it's mostly known for one scene, and that is Burt Lancaster and Deborah Carr's character are on a beach making out, and the waves hit them, and it's like it's considered like one of the most romantic scenes ever. And it's been parodied so many times in other movies. And I don't know how romantic that is, having water splash over you as you're trying to kiss somebody. It would seem, I don't know, not that great. But anyways, that's a scene there. But the whole scene takes place like right before Pearl Harbor attacks on a military base in Hawaii, whatever. And it deals with, these two friends, Cliff Robinson, I believe his name is, and Frank Sinatra, as they, and he falls in love with a kind of prostitute, basically, though they couldn't say prostitute back at this time. So I forget what they had to call her, but that's basically, because it's based off a book anyways, and she's a prostitute in the book. But anyways, it kind of deals with his romance. And then, he's like supposed to be a good boxer, and so the sergeant wants him to compete in some kind of boxing match, but he refuses, because he refuses to actually box. So the sergeant like makes his life live in hell and does all terrible things to him. And finally he does get in a fight, I think, and all this. Anyways, I just didn't care for the plot at all. Burt Lancaster's character is that he's like cheating with his superior officer's wife, which is Deborah Carr, and they have this torrid romance. So it deals with these romances, and overall, though, it has a terrible ending to it. And I guess that's what kills me, is it has a very unhappy ending to it. It ends with Pearl Harbor attack, in fact. But yeah, it's just a terrible ending that just like kills the whole movie. When I'm like, what was the point of this movie? Like, when you get to the end, I don't want to spoil it, but it's just, I hated the ending so much. And it was a really boring movie, and I didn't care for the romance part. So that's here at 88, From Here to Eternity. All right, we're getting close to, I got two more to talk about. Number 87, this is going to be another controversial pick here on my part, because I know everybody I talk to loves this movie. I don't get it. I didn't care for this movie at all. It's the first foreign film to ever win Best Picture, and that is Parasite, which won Best Picture in 2019. It's a Korean film, and I forget the name of the director. It was a Korean director, of course. Won Best Director, Best Picture, probably Best Screenplay, and all this stuff. And yeah, everybody was all about this movie. I remember in the summer, everybody was talking about Parasite. It won like at Cannes or something or whatever, some big film festival, and everybody's like, "Oh, this Parasite movie," and I'm like, oh, okay. It seemed hyped up, and then I remember I finally got to see it, and I was like, I don't get why anybody cares about this movie. It's about this loser family who scams their way into this rich family's working for them as like maids and drivers and tutors and whatnot. They lie their way in because they're losers who don't, they don't have any money. And I think it's very popular to make these movies where the rich people are bad and the poor people are good. And we like the poor people getting one over on the rich people. And like, I don't care about that at all. I don't have any problem with rich people. It's just, the very liberal idea, I think. Anyways, but nothing really interesting happens. None of the characters are really that likable or I care about it. And it has the weirdest twist in the third act of the movie. It kind of goes a certain way and you're just like, I'm not caring about this movie. Then all of a sudden this twist happens and you're like, what is going on? I did not expect this to happen, but I don't think I needed it to happen. It doesn't make the movie better. And then some terrible things happen. I'm not to spoil, but some people get killed. And it's shocking. You're like, wow, I didn't think this, it looked like a comedy almost, and then all of a sudden some murder happens and you're like, oh my God, like this is terrible. Now it's a tragedy. And the movie does not end happy at all. It ends very non-happy. And at the ending I hated, and it was terrible. And just, I didn't care for any of the characters, didn't care for the plot. It was just a nothing movie to me. And yet everybody loves this movie, so good for them. They saw something I didn't see. And so that's why I got Parasite at 87 on the list. Pretty low, but yeah, just didn't care for it. And then for the last movie I'll talk about in this video, cap out the bottom 10 of my list. Number 86 is a movie probably no one knows. It's called Out of Africa, which came out in 1985, won Best Picture in 1985. And I remember the first time seeing this and just going, wow, this is so boring. It is I remember it being really long and boring. And Meryl Streep and Robert Redford, like the main two characters. Meryl Streep is like, she's living in Africa with her husband because of his job, she has to live in Africa. And then she has, this affair with this pilot played by Robert Redford, of course. And yeah, it's just about that. So it's like, yeah, it's not really, who cares about this plot? It's like, it's a nothing plot, nothing romance, you know. Great, I mean, Meryl Streep, great actress. Robert Redford, you know, fine actor, really big name. The only interesting part is like the scene where a lion kind of creeps up on her, and you think, oh no, she's gonna get killed by a lion. Of course she's not, because she's Meryl Streep, she's the main character. But that was kind of an intense scene, I would say. That's maybe the most interesting scene of the movie. Besides that, really boring movie, really boring romance movie. Don't know why I won Best Picture. It just didn't seem like a fit. But that is Out of Africa from 1985. That's number 86 on my list. So that's number 95 to 86. And I'm sure, I know the comments, you're going to say I'm wrong on some of these. And I totally get it. That's just my opinion. These are the movies that I really did not like out of these 95 movies. And so, yeah, but still, feel free to comment if you've seen these movies. What do you think about them? Should be higher on your list, lower on the list, well, not lower probably, but higher on the list. Go ahead and tell me. I don't mind, but just be respectful. Anyway, so yeah, so comment and just say, I want to say thanks to anybody watching this. It's a little niche type list because most people don't watch Best Picture winners. I'm weird because I'm like a real Oscar nerd guy who watches everything involved with the Oscars. That's just the way I've been for, you know, good 20 plus years of my life. Anyway, so yeah, thanks for watching it though. If you're watching this, thank you for liking this video, and just thank you to all my subscribers for supporting the channel. I appreciate all of you.